A phone made in Europe for Europe. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been trying to move away from big tech since the beginning of the year. I've left Google, I've left Apple, of course, last year, and I also left Microsoft for Linux. Now, the one thing I've been struggling with is my phone and operating system. I've used a lot of different custom ROMs, some more privacy focused and some more fun, of course, and I've kind of learned how to live without Google services and, more importantly, Play services. Now, I wanted to go a little bit further and focus more on European-based companies and phones in particular. There are some European manufacturers that are more mainstream, like Fairphone, for example, but I wanted to go a little bit further. I wanted to see if there was a possibility to use Linux on a phone. Well, since 2013, Sailfish OS has existed and has even made some hardware devices that people can use. You can also use Sailfish OS, which is a Linux-based, privacy-focused European operating system that has no relation to Android or Apple in any way. I was really attracted to this company, of course, because it's based in Europe. The company is Jolla, who runs Sailfish OS, and they're based in Finland. They've also chosen to manufacture their devices in the continental European region, in Turkey to be exact, but this is something that stands out. A company that is privacy focused, European focused, and takes their manufacturing quite seriously. Now, you don't have to buy their device in order to use Sailfish OS. If you have a Sony Xperia Legacy device, you can also install Sailfish OS on your device. Now, going into getting this device, I want to be very transparent. I have experience using alternative app stores. I'm comfortable with getting dirty and trying different things, but I have to say that this device is quite user-friendly if you know where it's coming from. If you're somebody who's never left a different operating system besides stock Android or iOS, this device might be a little bit of a shock for you. If you're somebody who's thinking about using Linux on their device, I highly recommend playing around with different custom ROMs on Android first, so that way it's not quite a shock to you. Now, first things first, I decided to get the whole shebang. I wanted to get the Sailfish OS device made by Jolla, which is the C2 Community Phone. Now, this phone is manufactured by Reader, and of course, it runs Sailfish OS. Now, for me, when I turned on the device, I found it quite interesting. As somebody who's tested a bunch of different custom ROMs, this one is definitely nothing related to Android. When you get into the menus, the different apps that are there by default, you can see that this is really a different and new user experience. But with that being said, it's still quite user-friendly. You can have swipe gestures, which are different than Android in a lot of ways. And you can see in the menu here, you have a very Scandinavian design. Once you get acquainted with the gestures, the different logic behind, you'll find that it's quite user-friendly as far as accessing notifications, accessing your settings menu, and even being able to change the theme quite easily. Now, like other devices I've tested, other custom ROMs, everything that is digital minimalism focused, I noticed that there is a lack of accessibility settings. I am able, of course, to change the font size and things like this, but you won't find features such as talkback, voiceover, or anything that you might specifically need if you're looking for those accessibility features. Now, as far as the Linux experience is concerned, you will have access to the terminal if you wish. Now, if you're somebody who's familiar with using Linux, you will have your beloved terminal that you can use to install or make custom modifications to your device if needed. I find that out of the box, the C2 Community Phone doesn't have all of that bloatware, of course, but it does have the Jolla App Store, which enables you to install essential apps. I'm talking about calculator, if you want an email client, or things like this. But if you're somebody who's used to using de-Googled versions of certain apps, or you're quite familiar with open source apps, of course, you can install Aurora Store if you need specific Google apps or F-Droid. I find the integration with Aurora Store and F-Droid to be quite seamless. I'm able to use all the apps I generally use, like Entei Photos, for example, or Thunderbird for my email, without any issues. Now, if you're looking to use apps that rely on Google services, you can install MicroG and use those apps more or less seamlessly. And the beautiful thing about the Jolla C2 Community Phone is that it's privacy focused. Now, when you're thinking about other privacy focused custom ROMs in the Android realm, you'll be familiar with things like Graphene OS, which uses sandboxing to really protect your information and encrypt your data. What's great by out of the box with the Jolla C2 Community Phone is that it is sandboxed with FireGel. I've never heard of FireGel before, but of course it is Linux focused, and all of your data is encrypted, it is protected, it is sandboxed, which means it's contained in its own environment and it's not going to explore around your phone, harvest that data and send it to a big tech corporation. This is really important for me, and this is one of the main reasons why I had left Android to begin with. This also slows down your device, it takes away resources, it takes away battery life. So you'll notice devices that use alternative operating systems, or in this case, Linux with Sailfish OS, your battery life will be extended because it's not constantly harvesting your data and sending it away. On paper, this device is the perfect device for me, but there are some big caveats. I think this is quite essentially a work in progress. I think they have some things to improve upon, but I haven't found any major blockages that prohibit me from using this device as my daily driver. I've been using it for a week now, so this is not an extensive, in-depth review. It's more or less a first impressions on how it's been working for me personally. Now, the first day getting the device, there's a lot of setup to go through, install your apps and things like this. So you'll notice there is some overheating perhaps, especially if you're downloading multiple apps or really putting the device into the loop. This is because of the processor. It's not the highest spec processor. It's a mid-range, of course. The device itself, I would identify it as a quite mid-range device, but it feels like top quality. Honestly, the device itself feels premium in the hands. There are some features that are not there that may be with other devices. You don't have a fingerprint scanner. You don't have a face unlock option. And this was one of the major blocks that hit me when I was unlocking the device quite often. I put my SIM card in it the first day I got it and took it through as my daily driver, and I needed to unlock it often to take pictures because my son has started judo lessons. I found that the unlock code option is not the best in my mind. It's one of those things that I had with other devices, for example, the Medita Compact, where you need 6-number code to unlock. And if you're trying to unlock your device quickly and you don't have a fingerprint or a face scan, this can be quite cumbersome. So I decided to deactivate the safety feature of having a code to unlock my device. Yes, this puts me maybe at more risk if somebody finds my device, but the gestures are a little bit different than other devices. So I'm thinking maybe if somebody finds this device, they might be confused. So here's hoping. So I did deactivate that feature to be able to access my camera a lot quicker, and I find that using the device has been more pleasant since then. Now, another thing I would like to point out is the battery life. If you're judging the battery by the first couple days, I would say hold on and wait. The first couple days I had atrocious battery. This is because I was installing a lot of things, uninstalling things, testing different things. So this really impacted my battery. It was just dying so quick. But after it got settled, everything was more or less untouched. I can go multiple days without having to recharge this device. There's a 4,000 milliamp battery, and I find that it handles quite well, especially if you're in the habit of turning it on to flight mode at night. You can extend the battery even longer, so I haven't had any issues. Now, as far as app compatibility, I'm going to put there's a big question mark depending on the app you're using. I haven't had any issues with my banking app, but my banking app honestly works on every device that I've ever tested. I love my bank. Their app is just perfection. But I have had issues with communication apps such as WhatsApp. I can receive and send messages without an issue, but I'm not receiving notifications, especially for incoming calls. I was shocked that I didn't receive these notifications. I received the notification after the fact that the call had been ended or somebody had called and hung up, but I wasn't receiving notifications as those actions were happening. I wasn't receiving the clear push notifications. So that's something I'm going to have to tinker with, maybe see alternative ways on how to install WhatsApp or mess with the notification settings a little bit more to see if I can correct this. And that's kind of the overall arching theme of using this particular device. It is not easy to use straight out of the box for the average consumer. If you're somebody who has never ventured away from stock Android again or iOS, this would be a big shock for you. But if you're somebody who's used to tinkering with their devices using custom ROMs, it won't be a big deal, and it's quite fun to see different ways to work around so you can find your solutions. I've tried customizing the interface a little bit more. I've tried to use custom launchers. It doesn't really work so well at the moment, so I'm going to have to find workarounds to see if I can find a way to have a launcher work on this particular device that meets my particular needs. Now, again, this is 1 week with my Linux phone. Overall, positive. I feel very good using it. I feel at peace. I don't know what I can say about it. I've been looking for a device that is European focused, made in Europe, supporting European needs, and really trying to further that agenda on using Linux and being free from big tech. I think this device could be the future for a lot of people, and more importantly, a lot of companies and governments. I think this could be an excellent option if we want to really have ownership over our data, our privacy, without having companies outside of Europe taking initiative and taking ownership of things that we don't give permission for. I think going into the future, I'm going to continue using the Jolla C2 Community Phone because I really love this project. I really love this initiative, and I think this device has potential, and I've heard that they're thinking about putting out another device. Because one of the negatives about this particular device is the size of it. So I'm hoping in the future, if Jolla decides to put out another hardware device, it's a little bit smaller. It's not the biggest device I have, but 6.5 inches is definitely bigger in the hands than I'm used to. But otherwise, it's been a great experience, and I will continue using it to give a more long-term review for those of you who may be interested in switching to a Linux phone. Thank you to all of my members for supporting the channel, and thank you for watching, and see you soon.